Hi, welcome to Culturally Determined. I'm your host, Aryeh Wade, and my guest today is Magdalene Taylor. Magdalene, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Magdalene Taylor. I'm a writer and I'm currently senior editor at Playboy.
Thanks for coming back on the show. So, you were on the show almost exactly 5 years ago, April 2021, and maybe I'll include a link to that conversation. So, you write about sex and culture and have been on that beat for a while. And when I was listening to that episode from April 2021, we were, you mentioned the phrase hot vax summer, and we were sort of like, okay, the pandemic is over and we're finally ready to get out of our houses and start, meeting people in the real world once again. And everything's going to be great. And I guess it hasn't exactly worked out that way. So you also have a Substack called Many Such Cases, where you write about issues of gender relations and dating and desire. How are things going in this world in early 2026?
Dang, that is funny that that's what we talked about. I also have like no recollection of that component of the conversation.
We
Um,
talked about juggalos also.
okay, good. Glad we got that out there. Yeah, I mean, I am always an optimist and like I don't really see much purpose in doing the type of writing that I do if I can't find a way to look forward and say that like something good is about to happen, even if I'm wrong, like I was 5 years ago. Yeah, the last 5 years, I would say we did not get that kind of return to in-person life that I would have hoped for. In fact, I would say that it got like kind of way worse, or at least people complained about it a lot more. Um, I do think that like maybe now we're starting to head into this in-person thing again. It's like it did take 5 years to really step out of the pandemic lull, but this isn't even just like my own assessment. This is sort of me reading what other people are saying about 2026, and it feels like I'm seeing a lot of like, okay, now like for real, you guys, this time like we're actually putting our phones away. So I don't know if that'll happen for real, but that's people feel like I mean, it sounds like people are ready for it. I think it's going to be, easier said than done, but I try to be optimistic, like I said.
Right. So yeah. So there was this period where during lockdown and extending afterwards, where there weren't a lot of people were working from home. They weren't going to bars or restaurants. They weren't doing group activities. And so if you were interested in meeting a romantic partner, like some sort of digital intervention, probably a dating app was the only way you could do it. And then the world opened up once again. And so it seems like, yeah, there has been a general, like, it's been noted in a lot of places that like the dating apps are doing worse, like their stock prices are down
Mhm.
and there's an exhaustion with that. And then I guess there's like maybe new versions of these apps, or the apps are changing, or they're saying artificial intelligence will be the thing that like fixes this. Um, but yeah, well, how does the technology fit into it? And also, yeah, just I mean, dating apps in general, but also just the technology of the smartphone um, that we all have.
Yeah, I think that that's really what what made the sort of going outside renaissance that we expected of 2021 not happen is that people really did fully form their phone addictions and haven't quite departed from them yet. And I don't really think that like technologically a ton has changed since then in terms of our day-to-day lives and how we interact with apps and things like that. Obviously, AI has changed a lot and has developed into, a far scarier thing than I I would have expected. And so obviously there's been impacts there. But at the same time, I would say that I don't think that AI has yet started to change like the fabric of our social interactions. I think that is certainly a possibility for the very near future. but I don't think that like there are a ton of people who you would like otherwise classify as like a normal social person who, they've completely like replaced those social interactions with AI.
Yeah.
It does happen. You hear a story here and there of like, a happy married dad or whatever who like is in love with this AI girlfriend or whatever, but for the most part I don't think that that's like really fundamentally changed our social fabric just yet.
Yeah.
I think that could still happen, but
Yeah. The Times has run a number of pieces on people interacting with chatbots. And one that they ran like 8 or 9 months ago was this woman who did have an AI boyfriend and was like, I'm in love with my AI boyfriend, was something like the headline. And then they did a follow up after ChatGPT did like their algorithm change where they made the chatbot less like agreeable or something, or less likely to flatter the question asker. And the woman said she had lost interest with her her AI
yeah.
boyfriend and got a real life boyfriend. I'll find the link and it'll be in the notes. But something like, she said something like, I didn't regret my time with the AI boyfriend, but I was just like, I was over it, kind of thing. So there are those
Well,
examples of people going full into this like simulated, totally into a simulated world.
good for her
Yeah.
that she turned it around, I guess. But I sort of think that a lot of those people are not just they're just like fundamentally not normal people, even if they
Correct.
manage to turn it around and like get, a real life boyfriend or whatever. I mean, there's plenty of not normal people out there right now who have, healthy in-person relationships, whatever. I'm obviously using normal in a very fleeting and definable context here, but
Right.
uh yeah, I do think there are, horrors yet to come, but yeah, I don't know. Right now I'm not like I'm not too I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Go on.
Okay, so yeah, it is. I mean, most of the like the things that AI currently does, it's like you're interacting with a screen and it's showing you something on the screen, and it might be such an impressive thing to think, oh, well, only a human could have done this, but it's fake. But like in terms of so the screen being the mediator for meeting a possible romantic partner, we've had that for like 30 or 40 years at this point. But eventually, almost always, you end up having to meet the person in real life, and then the AI can't, or the screen, the screen has to go away at some point. And so I guess you could imagine these things where like the AI is like Cyrano de Bergerac, is that the guy's name? The character who's like whispering in the ear of the guy who's stupid, telling him what to say to the woman. Um, something like that. One could imagine people being fed lines of how to interact, or like AI assisted conversations happening on both ends, and so like the computer gets like two computers talking to each other more than two people talking to each other. But the
Yeah.
people do eventually meet up in real life, and the AI yet can't interface in a real life meeting. So there is that. Do you think people really are sick of the apps, or and like that's just gonna be something that like older people use it, and if you're 19 years old now, it seems like a weird vestige of some previous era, or could they adapt, or what?
I think that they're still going to like serve a utility. I do think that the the fatigue that's been reported, even by myself, I've written about this, of course. I think that that is all real. I think that its effects are maybe a little bit overstated, where I think plenty of people complain about things and continue to do them and use them, and they're not going to stop eating that garbage. Um, so I don't quite think that there's like going to be this like revolution where, a match group is bankrupt and, they go away entirely.
That's the company that owns most of the dating apps, or all
Yes.
the dating apps.
Most of the major ones, Tinder, Hinge, some of the other like more niche ones.
Like Christian Mingle, or perhaps, or
Yeah, like the BLK app for Black people. Yuzu is an Asian. dating app owned by the Match Group. So yeah, some of these more identity focused ones, but then also major players like Tinder. Um, and I think also Match.com. Um, I have wondered if dating sites like Match or eHarmony could kind of be the middle ground that people need in this time where it's like a little bit less like scrolling on Instagram,
Mhm.
which I think is what has really bothered people about the state of dating apps. I think that's where a lot of the fatigue comes from, is that, you know, you're using it in the same way that you do TikTok or whatever. So I've wondered if maybe like being on the Match.com website is sort of like the solution that people need, like only being on a dating program on your desktop computer, perhaps. But yeah, I one thing that I do think with AI that could be making a difference, you know, like you were saying, it's basically going to be, you know, could be two computers talking to each other. I think that for a good deal of people, this reality where we just can't tell the difference between AI and a real person or real life or whatever, a real image, that is going to be something that actually pushes people more offline because
Mhm.
you don't have to question it there. Um, so I mean, for now anyway.
Right.
But I think that I think that is part of what's happening now with this like 2026 sentiment that, you know, now we're really going to do it. Now we're really going to get offline. I think a big portion of that is that AI has now advanced to the point that it's becoming very difficult to tell the difference between an AI video and a human made video. And eventually we're just going to grow a bit bored and frustrated with not being able to tell the difference. And so it's like, I guess I'll put my phone down, see what's in front of me.
That makes sense. And hopefully, yeah, I could see us approaching this point where it's like everything you see on your phone, you can't tell if it's real or not. And you're like, fuck this shit. I want to go outside and touch grass, as we used to say. Um, and you know, I mean, the original, like Match.com and eHarmony, the original idea was sort of like you fill out a profile, you answer a bunch of questions, and we have this algorithm or something or system, patented system that will find the three perfect matches or maybe only one perfect match for you. And then Grinder and Tinder introduced this different way of doing it where you had a seemingly endless supply of things that the user chose from. But the AI thing could just return us to it's like it's you know it's just instead of like an algorithm that was written in 1996, it's like, oh, it's this giant complicated machine that's going to spit out the three perfect people for you instead of the endless scrolling. And maybe that would be more appealing. I don't know if the you know who knows if the artificial intelligence is better at it than whatever eHarmony came up with 30 years ago, but it would solve the like the problem of like seemingly endless choice and you know which makes every individual thing seem sort of like disposable because you can always there's the possibility of something better being out there is
Right.
always is ever present. And yes, I've seen ads for things that are like yeah, it's more like a matchmaking service, but it's like we use AI, you know, to find your perfect match. And so that's just a digital digitized version of you know something that's existed for thousands of years of like
Right.
a matchmaker claiming expertise to find the perfect person for you.
Yeah. Well, so, you know, I definitely think there are this sense of there being endless supply and, you know, perhaps always something better on the horizon. Uh, that has been a big contributing factor to the dating app fatigue thing. But I also think that a big component of it is that when people first got on Tinder a decade ago, there was a sense that it wasn't being algorithmically filtered, and people really enjoyed that. They felt as though they were getting this unfiltered feed of, you know, all of the people that are around them. And in more recent years, that's shifted to where it is this algorithmically curated thing, not simply just who is the best match for you, but who can the app show you that will most entice you to become a paid user of that app.
Mhm.
And so I think I'm not certain exactly of Grindr's algorithm today, but I believe that Grindr is a little bit more true to form in the here is somebody who wants to have sex with you. Here are all the people that would potentially have sex with you, you know, in a 10 square mile radius.
Mhm.
And so I think that that is a little bit, I believe that's a little bit like more of an algorithm free app, or at least previously was. So yeah, you know, I don't know at the moment exactly what people want to get from the apps, but I sort of think people are leaning more towards this a non-curated experience. I think they want just what feels like here's what's out there and you decide for yourself, rather than this idea that there's like people being here's the people that the app is dangling in front of you like a carrot.
Mhm.
Um yeah. Yeah.
Right. And there was a story that went around a couple months ago about women figuring out like a hack for Hinge that involved like
Mhm.
it's doing a series of complicated things like deleting your account, starting it over again, saying no to everybody for 24 hours, not looking at it, and then it was like a way of tricking the algorithm to show, I guess, men that the app decided or the algorithm decided were high value that normally would sort of like hide from you or you have to pay to get access to them or something. But that's more like tricking the algorithm into working for your own ends, not like getting rid of the algorithm entirely. Um, and yeah, so I don't know. But also, I mean, like TikTok is the whole thing with TikTok, I assume, is the algorithm, and it's like it figures out what you want and shows it to you. So if there could be that, but for dating, and TikTok is now more popular than the other social media sites, and the other social media sites have emulated it in like a for you feed kind of thing. I'm trying to figure out what thing it thinks you want. So if a dating app could actually figure out what things it thinks you want and serves them to you, I think people would like that, but maybe not, or maybe yeah, maybe it would be like too samey or something.
Yeah, I mean, from my more uh romantic standpoint, I have always kind of argued that what we think that we want on an app is not necessarily an accurate depiction of who we could be attracted to. And so I think that is part of the failure of the apps, is that it's presented people with a very limited understanding of attraction and of romance. And so you know, I see that being a problem there. And I mean, it's like TikTok has very successfully figured out this algorithm that keeps us wanting to look at it, but you know, I'm sure it would be better if they didn't do that to
Well,
us.
better for us, but not
Right. Yeah,
not better
exactly.
for ByteDance or
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
eventual consortium of David Ellison and the Saudi royal family that's going to own
Right.
American TikTok.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I also but I think though the success of TikTok is that, you know, you can just continue scrolling in perpetuity and it will continue to show you what it is you want to see. And there are certainly people who do use dating apps this way, and that is part of the problem of dating apps, is that they have become structured that way. But ideally the end goal of using a dating app is to meet a person, whereas
Right.
the end goal of the TikTok algorithm is for there to be no end goal. And so
Yeah.
structurally, yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, of course the apps want to the dating apps want to show you this algorithmically curated thing to keep you swiping and, you know, buying more packs of roses or whatever it is that you're supposed to do on there. But yeah, I do hope that people would eventually, you know, be like, wait, what did I get on here for? I'm not achieving the goals that I set out for here with.
Right. Yeah, and Hinge at least used to advertise itself as like this is the app that we want you to delete
Yeah,
because
made to be deleted.
and I don't know if they stuck with that, which is you know here's our product that we want you to stop using. That's an unusual like business pitch.
Right.
Um,
There was actually a lawsuit about that specifically, that it was false advertising.
oh,
That
really?
they that it was clear that the actual purposes of the app were to get you to buy their product and continue using it.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what happened with that lawsuit, but it was a pretty big deal. It wasn't. It made some kind of difference somewhere. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, huh. So, okay, so stepping back, you've written, you don't just study dating apps. You've written about like whether men and women even in these days even want each other to begin with. And you wrote a pair of posts. I think, do men even like women anymore? And do women even like men anymore? That was looking at the discourse around sort of like women saying men are bad and men saying women are bad. And I think you wrote that in 2024. Can you talk a little bit about that, and have things changed since you wrote those posts?
Well, gosh, it's been a particularly lively day for that conversation. If you are on X at all.
I quit
Uh,
X, as you're referring to the Everything app, but I quit
yes,
that
the
site, so I
everything.
don't know what's happening there anymore.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I felt I'm such a victim at this point that I've even started calling it X. It's like
Yeah, it used to be
I've
called Twitter.
yeah. I still prefer to call it Twitter, but
What's the
well,
discourse on
so
there?
over the weekend, the Tate brothers, the guys from the Fresh and Fit podcast, Nick Fuentes, newer to the scene, Clavicular, and some other streamer guys all got together
Sneeko was.
in
I did see this. Sneeko was
Nico.
there. Yeah. So
Yes,
there's these
yes,
online weirdos who have followings, and Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist, and like an explicit white supremacist and anti-Semite.
yeah,
Whereas some of the other guys are more just like manosphere influencer streamer types.
yeah. A lot of them are kind of more like manosphere adjacent. Um, I mean, Andrew Tate is Andrew Tate, and he's awful for a variety of reasons, but namely the misogyny. Um, but yeah, a lot of other just like manosphere adjacent influencer type streamers. I wasn't really super familiar with Sneeko. Um,
I had heard the name before and it stuck in my head, but I was never entirely sure who he was.
yeah. Uh, Clavicular is a guy who has really dominated the whole looks maxing scene. Um,
Which is
should I
briefly
explain
defined.
that?
You briefly defined that for people
Yeah,
who don't know.
looks maxing is this term that originated in the incel community, which is basically devoted to improving your appearance in order to sleep with hotter women, or sleep with women at all if you're truly an incel. But it's really devoted to like a kind of like a microscopic level of like adjusting your appearance, where they're really interested in things like millimeters of bone
So
and
this is beyond just like going to the gym. This is like plastic surgery and
right, yeah.
other this whole jaw,
Often, yeah,
making your
yes,
jaw bigger through various ways.
yes, exactly. It's not just like I would like to like be a attractive healthy person. It's like women aren't going to want to fuck me if my eyes are, I don't know, uh, have the wrong canthal tilt or whatever. I don't know. It's really bizarre. But he's so Clavicular is like the new hot name in that world. Uh, they all got together in Miami and basically just like made, absolute dorks of themselves, where they had women kind of around them, but were constantly expressing their distaste for women. The people who are, devoted watchers of these people were saying things like, like Clavicular had a woman on his lap, and there were guys who were like, this guy's in a room with Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes and all these other guys, and he's like more interested in this chick on his lap. And it's like, well, that could perhaps be because he's a 20-year-old straight young man.
Right. So they were in a club or
So
like the VIP room of a club or something like that.
yeah, they took some party limo to a club in Miami, and then they also played the Kanye West song Heil Hitler. It was overall just like a nasty, miserable time. But it really underscored the idea that these, okay, these are supposed to be like the macho man, masculine figures of this universe, and they fundamentally do not like women to the point that they are not even interested in like the most basic act that misogynists throughout time have still been interested in with women, which is having sex with them. So it's gotten that bad that they
Right. I mean, there always was this like, well, I mean, Andrew Tate is misogynist. There always was this misogynistic element of all this, but like it really does seem like it's more like there's this like homoerotic element of it that is even more explicit, where it's like, yeah, we don't need women at all. We just like can hang out together, and we're all looking really, really good through plastic surgery and steroids and stuff.
yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know if they actually fuck each other in the end or not, but so they were streaming this, so it's performative for their audiences. But okay, so there was a backlash against this. Does that mean that? Well, yeah. What do you, or is that true? And what do you think that means?
I mean, I'm sure that I could find large circles of people who thought this was so cool and who were enjoying it, for something beyond just the spectacle of it all. But it really, to me, feels like the more these figures become mainstream, even if the mainstream element is just like being kind of on the normal side of Twitter, the lamer it all like visibly becomes to people. And so yeah, I mean, the backlash was basically just everybody saying like this is the most annoying sequence of videos I've ever seen in my life. Um, a lot of like this is very gay type of commentary, which like is very understandable. My sense is okay. I do think Nick Fuentes is probably gay, but my sense is that a lot of these other men are not gay. They are misogynist, but they're not gay. There's some other weird like sublimation of like masculine sexuality happening here, but it's not strictly that like they want to fuck the other guys in the group.
Mhm.
I think that would be a little bit, if only it could be so easy, if
Right.
only it were that straightforward.
Hmm.
It's probably not that. Um but yeah, it was just a really big display of ostensibly heterosexual men who do not like women by any measure.
So, you know, there's the drill tweet. This whole thing smacks as gender, and people have brought this up on Blue Sky, which is the like knockoff version of Twitter, where a lot of liberal cucks like myself retreated after quitting Twitter, and that has been going around a lot also, especially when Donald Trump is threatening to invade Greenland for like no reason, and it's just like, yeah, this is just everything is just insecure men trying to prove their manhood. And but like, yeah, it's not, it's disconnected from getting with a woman or something. It's like, it's just self-reflective, or I don't even know what, or just so you can get other guys in the chat to like give you a fave or something like that.
Exactly.
But okay, but among the normal people who we assume, I think that is one of your theses, is that most people are normal. I feel like you wrote that at one point.
Yeah.
What are the normal people like doing? Are they sick of both the like violent misogyny and sort of like joking misandry on the other side that online like women on TikTok or Twitter have been doing for a long time? Like, do they want to go out and beat people, or like, yeah, what are the normies up
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty accurate assessment of normal people. I think that there is plenty of disillusionment with both sides of the political spectrum and both sides of this gender war spectrum, where, there are kernels of truth to be pulled from both sides, and most normal people are able uh to understand that. I mean, I do think that the idea that two things can be true at once is something that a lot of people still really struggle with, but
especially on social media.
nevertheless, yes, I think especially on social media. I think that when you talk to somebody off of social media, it's a bit of an easier concept to deal with. I do have a sense with a lot of this gender war stuff that increasingly normal women are being pulled a little bit to the fringes with the casual TikTok misandry, in a way that I don't think benefits women in any particular way. Yeah, I also think that, like, with teenage boys, this might be like a little bit of a different conversation, to where that's something that's my the blind spot that I'm really scared of looking into.
Uh-huh.
Is, what is a normal, so to speak, teenage boy think?
Right.
Not so sure. Not so sure there.
Yeah, and when we taped this five years ago, I never heard of Andrew Tate, certainly, and there was some big magazine, like Times Magazine piece, like 3 or so years ago, that was like every 13-year-old boy in America like knows who Andrew Tate is, and either like jokes about him, thinks he's cool, is participating in his like program or something, and that was very disturbing to me. And it was like, okay, TikTok is evil and
Yeah.
all this is bad kind of thing. I mean, Tate, I guess, has, his esteem in the mainstream has gone down even further as he was like arrested for human trafficking in Romania, and
Right.
is very, is likely to spend years in jail. I mean, he was in jail for a time and he was on house arrest. I don't know how he ended up in Miami, but yeah, so hopefully that was like some sort of crazy algorithm driven like moment that is passing on. But surely there were 10,000 other people who saw Andrew Tate doing stuff and are like, I could be the next Andrew Tate, or I could be the, like Andrew Tate for like the Philippines or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, that also seemed quite bad. And I have no contact with teenage boys, so I don't know what they're into these days, either.
Yeah, I have a niece who just became a teenager, and I have a lot of questions for her. But I sort of think that right now a lot of like a 13-year-old's recognition of somebody like Andrew Tate is very much like akin to the whole 6-7 phenomenon,
Hmm.
where it's kind of just like something that they're repeating because they know it gets a rise out of people. And like, I would suspect that a lot of young boys right now are familiar with all of these figures, and maybe even boasting about their familiarity with these figures, largely just because they know it gets a rise out of adults.
Yeah.
Um, that's not to say that like it's isn't harmful for them to be like watching these people, but I think that, like, I guess another one of my like optimistic hopes is just that, like, that's a little bit, the depth of it all is maybe a little bit inflated.
So the other thing that happened last year was Donald Trump returning to the presidency, and sort of after Harris lost and the very early days of the second Trump administration, it sort of seemed like the manosphere had won or something, because Trump appeared on all these like male comedian streamer shows, and Rogan, and just like types like this seemed like they were ascendant. And then how, yeah, so what is what does Trump mean for gender, or especially as the past year has played out, it's been so nightmarish. Like, do you think there's people who are maybe sort of like were swayed by some of this stuff who maybe have turned away from it, or
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that that arc is like already over of the Trump manosphere cultural dominance. I think
Mhm.
that's done. I think that people are. I mean, I read an article today in Puck, which is my first article that I've ever read in Puck, um, about young men are turning away from Trump. The approval ratings are not great, and they're disappointed in his year so far, and that certainly isn't to say that they're disappointed for good reasons. Many of them are disappointed because they think he hasn't, gone far enough
Hmm.
with his policies. But nevertheless, there's a strong sense of disillusionment, and I, for a variety of reasons, can't really imagine Trump doing all of those podcasts again a year on. I mean, like, not obviously, like he's the president right now, and so maybe wouldn't do the podcast for those reasons. But like, I just don't think it would even register the same way. I I really don't see the manosphere like backing him up in the same way that we did a year ago.
Um, Donald Trump is a strange figure. That's a cliche thought to have, but him as like a masculine figure is so strange because I mean, in some ways, he very much represents like patriarchy and traditional masculinity, but also he wears makeup every day. He has this high whiny voice. He's like a gossip.
Hmm.
Like he has these weird like traditionally feminine traits, like he's like an old queen in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so for someone like for an Andrew Tate type who's like spent Donald Trump doesn't exercise, he plays this golf, but he's not looks maxing or like doing crunches or taking protein supplements. Like he is not, he himself is not an aspirational figure. Maybe like I mean RFK does do those pull-ups and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Maybe he could be more of a figure like that, but for someone who is like, oh, Andrew Tate is cool because like look at his chiseled body and like he has these sports cars and stuff, and then it's just like Trump, this like doddering, saggy man, like something never that never made sense, and somehow Trump was able to sell himself as like this tough guy when he's like so clearly not. Yeah, so that seemed like it was like built a castle built of sand or whatever for a long time. Um,
Yeah.
but then there there was this very like trad aspect of what Trump was saying, and with JD Vance also, and the whole childless cat lady aspect of it. So like they definitely played on gender anxieties
Hmm.
in various ways in the campaign, but they haven't, like I don't know if maybe there was no such policy that could have been implemented to like make those people happy or reward them in some way, but they definitely haven't even tried to do it. I don't know, maybe aside from like taking like promoting whole milk or stuff like that. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
they like whatever, the manosphere has some policy plans that they want to pursue. I don't think Trump has done it. Um, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, was it Nick Fuentes who also total diva gossip, like it's so true that like Nick Fuentes and Trump both would have been better as like red carpet hosts. Um, but anyway,
No, there's Trump. When Trump, before he entered real estate, he thought about becoming a Broadway producer, and
yeah,
yeah,
come on,
what a better
we could have
world.
had a good.
What a
I bet he
better
would have
world that
been
would have been, because he is a
great at
showman
that.
and he does have a sense of what will catch people's attention. Like those are some of his skills.
Right. And I mean that to with what you were saying about comparing him to Andrew Tate and like the differences in their performance of masculinity, that is ultimately uh that's ultimately the through line. That is where like Trump gets his respect too, is that he is just like he's a dominating presence, whether we align that with like our traditional view of masculinity or whatever. But anyway, so Nick Fuentes, I believe, was the one who said that he would not vote for JD Vance if JD Vance ran against Gavin Newsom, because Gavin Newsom is just like a far more like handsome, like all American looking man.
Right.
Um, and so
Right. Gavin Newsom looks like the grown up, like preppy bully from an 80s movie,
right,
whereas JD Vance is this somewhat like tubby, like soft boy with these,
exactly,
deep eyelashes and married a non-white woman and fathered not, mixed race children. So
exactly,
Nick Fuentes
exactly.
isn't going to like that either.
No, but like I think that gets to like the superficiality of it all, and not even just like the aesthetic superficiality, but also just like the ideological fleetiness of this whole thing, to where I'm just like not inclined to give it that much weight. And I said earlier that, as these things become more mainstream, it seems like they're losing some of their sway. And I sort of feel like that is particularly true with somebody like Nick Fuentes, where the more he becomes like a household name, honestly, is kind of what's happening in a way. The more that happens, the more he's solidified as this like mean-spirited little diva. Um, and we can kind of like laugh about some of the things he says and whatever, but like it's a lot harder to take him seriously as this like influential figure among young men.
Hmm.
And I also think that as that mainstreaming occurs too, the young men who really enjoyed like the Groyper community, that like they felt like they were doing something fringe and edgy, like all of that is lost too. So, but at the same time I'm often totally wrong in the things that I say. And Nick Fuentes could be president, so I
I
don't
don't
know.
think
But
that I mean, he's a repellent figure just on the surface level in a lot of ways. But no, I mean, yeah, there's a group of people who are naturally attracted to like the forbidden knowledge or the like truth teller who's the system is not letting them
Mhm.
like say they have some message that the system doesn't want to hear, so they're keeping them down. And that's the appeal of a lot of these like Jordan Peterson or Rogan kind of things. It's like, I'm here to tell you what they don't want you to know. But as that person gains more influence and talks more, gets media coverage, the like
Yeah,
charm of that forbidden aspect of it fades away, and he's just another moron with a stream. And then there's like 10,000 other people who want to get a slice of his whatever who will go after him. Yeah, so I mean, he's an extremely fringe figure, even more so. I mean, I guess he hung out with Kanye, but yeah, and I don't know. He will. I mean, he's going to continue to remain pretty marginal in the in the scope of things, I think. Um, yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you want to? We've been going on for about an hour. Is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
no, I mean, I think that we really we got through a lot here. Yeah, I guess I just want to emphasize that I stand by my naive optimism, and that I think I think it's critical in a time like this. I mean, we didn't talk a lot about the whole hetero fatalism and hetero
Mm-hmm.
pessimism that
Mm-hmm.
has pervaded, that I think those the essays that I did of do men even like women and do women even like men are examples of how that's become such a mainstream element of our culture. But I think that, yeah, both optimism and pessimism are choices, and so I'm gonna choose to be optimistic.
Okay. I admire that. I mean, it's hard to be optimistic about a lot of things these days, but I like that. And yeah, let's I hope for the best with when it comes to these things. Okay, if people want to follow your work or find out what you're up to, where would you direct them?
Well, I suppose I should first plug the Substack. That's magdalene.substack.com. My publication there is called Many Such Cases. I also own the URL sexual-culture.com. Just if you're feeling funky, and that it doesn't take you anywhere weird, it just takes you to my Substack. As I said, I'm also on X/Twitter, Instagram, Magda J Taylor, and hopefully you will also find more of me on Playboy.com and in the print Playboy issue, which will be out in April.
Okay, cool. So links to those sites will be in the show notes, so people can follow you there. And yeah, been enjoying many such cases, and I encourage people to subscribe to that. And people can rate and review this show, and they can smash that subscribe button, and they can tell their friends about it. Or they could, just go outside and touch grass and not listen to a podcast or look at a screen and go meet an attractive person who they might want to talk to. That's a possibility as well. Okay, well, thank you, Magdalene, for coming back on. And thanks to all the listeners out there. And we'll see you again next time.